The alien queen offered him a wish beyond his wildest dreams. Her reaction was astounding when he voiced his choice. Frank Mir tightened his hold on the M4 rifle, his gaze sweeping across the Celestial Palace's gilded halls. The tactical vest felt cumbersome, packed with ammunition enough for a skirmish, though he hoped it wouldn't be necessary. It was just a simple protection assignment for an alien envoy. "You appear uneasy, human," observed Ambassador Thyron, the tall, silver-skinned Austin beside him, his skin radiant beneath the crystal lights. "The Austins are beings of peace." "Forgive my candor, sir, but peaceful beings rarely require heavily armed guards," Frank responded, keeping his tone respectful. His neatly kept beard and mustache couldn't quite mask the skepticism in his expression. The ambassador chuckled softly. "They specifically requested a human presence. Your species earned quite a reputation after the Proxima conflict." Frank nodded grimly, recalling how a lone human fleet had repelled 3 alien flotillas. Humanity had certainly cemented its image with bravery and blood. The massive doors ahead swung open, unveiling the throne room. Frank inhaled sharply at the sight. The chamber was colossal, defined by immense crystal columns and a celestial ceiling seemingly woven from starlight. But the figure upon the crystalline throne claimed all his attention. Queen Thindra of the Austins was breathtaking. Her blue skin seemed to glow from within, accenting the flowing crimson gown that bared her shoulders. But it was her hair that spellbound him, cascades of vivid crimson that poured like molten fire. "Welcome, Ambassador Thyron," her voice echoed in the hall, "and your human escort." Frank kept his focus despite her intense silver eyes assessing him. He felt the room's subtle tension, the heightened grip of the alien guards on their energy weapons. The meeting unfolded with standard diplomatic gestures, but Frank's instinct screamed something was wrong. His eyes scanned constantly, noting every shadow. Then he spotted it, a subtle distortion of the air near one of the upper balconies. "Down!" Frank roared, diving forward. His body struck the queen just as a plasma blast tore through the space she had occupied. The throne imploded in crystal fragments. His training took over. He was on his feet in a heartbeat, rifle tracking. The assassin's active camouflage flickered during its attempted escape. Frank squeezed the trigger twice. The first shot disabled the cloaking. The second found its mark. The figure in dark armor collapsed, purple blood spreading. The chamber dissolved into chaos as guards surged forward, but Frank stood firm, guarding the queen. "Silence!" Queen Thindra's command cut through the din. She stood tall, though Frank noticed a slight tremor in her hands. "I am indebted to you, human." Frank lowered his weapon, but remained alert. "Merely doing my duty, Majesty." "No," she replied, her voice taking a formal tone, silencing the room. "By our sacred laws, a life saved warrants a single wish. Anything I can grant." A murmur rippled through the aliens. Frank felt tradition weigh on the room. "Majesty," he said, his brown eyes locked on hers, "I decline." "Impossible," she countered, a hint of steel in her voice. "It is not merely tradition, but our law. Refusal would bring shame upon us both. State your wish, human." Frank gazed at her, seeing beyond the alien beauty and power. He recognized a familiar depth in those eyes, loneliness. Power meant isolation, regardless of the species. Perhaps the rush hadn't faded, her ruby hair shimmering under the ethereal starlight. Or simply maybe humanity possessed that innate, boundless drive to defy all odds. Humanity had dared to reach for the heavens. "My heart," he declared, his voice resonating in the silent chamber, "longs to be yours, your Majesty." The ensuing stillness hung heavy. The queen's face morphed from shock to fierce indignation, her blue skin deepening as a blush bloomed. "Insolent fool," she began, but ancient traditions restrained her. She had publicly made the offer. bound by laws predating her rule. "Escort him to my private chambers," she commanded through clenched teeth. "I shall address this audacity personally." As guards ushered him away, Frank glimpsed Ambassador Thyron's expression, a mix of disbelief and grudging respect, a silent testament to human audacity. Frank merely smiled. Humanity had carved its path amongst the stars by embracing the impossible. The royal chambers epitomized advanced alien artistry, a symphony of technology and beauty. Crystalline walls throbbed with ethereal bioluminescence, casting an otherworldly glow, rendering his tactical gear starkly out of place. He stood calmly, hands clasped, as Queen Thindra swept into the room, her fiery crimson hair floating with raw power, mirroring her barely controlled rage. "Of all the audacious, arrogant beings," she began, pausing to inhale deeply, "do you grasp the enormity of your actions?" "Merely exercising my rights under your laws," Frank responded neutrally, suppressing a smile. "You've profaned our most sacred customs." She circled him like a predator, her flowing red gown a blur. "Why? Was this a calculated gambit? A human ploy to manipulate my empire?" Frank turned to meet her silver gaze. "Would you believe me if I said it wasn't?" "No," she stated bluntly, halting before him. "Your species is known for its cunning." "We're also renowned for following our hearts," he countered, sometimes with reckless abandon. The Queen frowned, a surprisingly human expression. "Explain yourself." "You possess a rare beauty," Frank began, "not merely physical, although you're breathtaking, but in the strength you project and the loneliness you carry. A burden familiar to every commander I've served, the weight of responsibility." "Is this pity?" Her voice dropped dangerously. "Admiration," he clarified. "Attraction, and yes, a dash of that infamous human audacity that propelled us to the stars." Thindra scrutinized him, her fury fading, replaced by intrigue. "Realize the implications of your wish extend beyond a fleeting affair. You've essentially requested a permanent place by my side. I am aware, and that cross-species liaisons, while permissible, are contentious within my own species." I discerned that from the expressions of horror in the throne room. She approached, close enough for him to feel her alien warmth. "Does it not concern you that I hold the power to execute you for this presumption?" Frank smiled, revealing a glimpse of human confidence. "If you intended to execute me, you would not have brought me to your chambers for a discussion." A surprised laugh escaped her, quickly suppressed yet genuine. "The reports about humans are accurate. You are impossibly bold." "We prefer optimistically persistent," he corrected, his tone shifting to seriousness. "I understand this is unconventional, but I'm not after your crown or your power. I simply desire the chance to know the woman behind the Queen, and if I fail, I'll respectfully retract my wish and humbly request something else, perhaps a delightful fruit basket." Her laughter was rich and full, echoing within the crystalline walls. "Great stars above, are you truly a fool, or perhaps the most cunning soul I've ever laid eyes on?" "You wouldn't believe how often I hear that," Frank confessed, a wry smile playing on his lips. "Usually they figure I'm a bit of both." Thindra drifted towards a shimmering window, her gaze lost in the breathtaking vista of her capital city's crystalline towers. "Do you understand the weight of what you ask? Why did this law even exist? The one promising a wish granted to anyone who saved the monarch's life?" Frank stepped closer, maintaining a respectful distance. "I figured it was meant to inspire heroism," he ventured. "Partly," she responded, "but more deeply, it's a crucible of character. The nature of a wish at that pivotal moment exposes one's true heart." She turned, her gaze piercing. "Many, so many crave riches, dominion, political advantage. You wished for me, simply me." A smile tugged at Frank's lips. Well, framed like that, it sounds remarkably romantic. It sounds human, she corrected softly, devoid of any harshness. Your species captivates us. Younger than many spacefaring civilizations, technically less advanced. Yet, she gestured towards him. Here you are, within my private sanctuary, accomplishing what my elite guards could not. You are a constant source of wonder. She drew nearer, reaching out, her fingers lightly brushing his beard with palpable curiosity. Our anatomies possess a strange compatibility, a universal riddle that most humanoids share, the capacity to interbreed. Frank's breath caught in his throat at her touch. Is that a fact? I don't think there's ever been a human-Australian pairing. Well, ever. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. It would ignite a scandal of galactic proportions. Am I right in sensing a hint of intrigue on your part? Thyra's silver eyes danced with playful mischief. Perhaps these surprises you humans possess intrigue me. Suddenly, an unseen voice cut through the room's calm. Your Majesty, the voice came from the room's communication system. The Security Council awaits your urgent presence. The Queen released a soft sigh, dropping her hand. Duty calls, but this dialogue is far from complete, Frank Mir. I await its continuation with anticipation. He responded, punctuating his words with a playful wink. Your Majesty. Pausing at the threshold, she turned back one last time. Oh, and Frank, if you intend to spend more time within my chambers, perhaps shed the tactical attire. It clashes rather starkly with the decor. As she disappeared, Frank glanced down at his black combat uniform, chuckling softly. Of course, he'd fall for the one woman in the galaxy who could make him feel underdressed even when decked out in military-grade armor. A gentle chime echoed, drawing his attention to a concealed panel that slid open, revealing a selection of exquisite Australian formal wear, tailored to his size. Well, he mused, examining the flowing, elegant yet undeniably alien garments. When in Rome. Frank adjusted the high collar of his Australian formal wear, a silver fabric masterpiece that felt both elegant and warrior-like. After a week in the palace, he was getting used to the bio-responsive material, its ability to adjust to his body temperature and movements. You're wearing it wrong. Queen Thindra's voice, light with amusement, greeted him as she entered her private study. The ceremonial clasps need to cross left over right for warriors in my defense. As Frank fixed the clasps, he said, Earth formal wear usually just means not getting any stains on yourself. Her laugh echoed through the crystalline room. Speaking of Earth customs, you handled the morning court session remarkably well. You mean when that noble called me a primitive genetic contamination, and I didn't shoot him? Precisely. Syrah's crimson hair cascaded over her shoulders as she settled behind her desk, holographic displays springing to life around her. Your Majesty, a voice interrupted through the communication system, Lord Commander Teeth requests an immediate audience regarding the assassination investigation. Thyra's expression turned serious. Send him in. The Lord Commander was all Frank imagined an alien military leader to be. Tall, imposing, barely concealing his disdain for the human. His ceremonial armor shifted colors. My queen, Teeth bowed, then straightened. Our examination of the assassin's gear is complete, and the stealth capabilities are deeply concerning. Thindra's voice cut through the silence. Tell me everything. The technology mimics Proxima schematics, Frank replied, his body locking in a vice-like grip. The nightmare of Proxima was more than just a pivotal moment. It was the near extinction of humankind. The Galactic Society's foundations were shaken. A three-way conflict human, Proxim Australian. Impossible, Thindra gasped. The peace treaty's worth less than scrap paper now. Frank's voice cut through the shock. Forgive me, but I've witnessed this before. After Earth's initial contact war, extremist cells rejected peace, preferring to destroy everything rather than adapt. Thieng's features grew dark. This is an internal matter. Thra silenced him. He speaks truth, and as my chosen companion, he has every right to be part of this investigation. Frank subtly noted the brief hesitation before chosen companion, suppressing a smile. The court still searched for a fitting title for him, skirting anything that might imply the intimacy growing between him and Thindra in private. Speaking of which, Frank continued, I need to examine the assassin's equipment. Human Special Forces fought Proxim stealth tech during our war. I might notice something your experts missed. Thieng looked as though he'd rather dissolve in acid, but Thra nodded sharply. Commander, see to it. After Thieng departed, Thra turned her penetrating gaze on Frank. You're holding back. Several thoughts, actually. He closed the distance to her desk. First, Proxim stealth tech requires specialized technicians for regular maintenance. Whoever supplied the assassin possesses a support structure here on Assails. Second, the timing is curious. An assassination attempt concurrent with a human delegate's presence. Either it's a frame-up to shatter the Alliance, or, Thindra prompted, or someone desperately opposes human influence within the Australian court. He met her silver eyes, his voice lowered. Influence? Thra rounded her desk to face him directly. You believe this is about us? The Alliance? All we represent? He reached out, carefully tucking a lock of her vivid hair behind her ear. Change terrifies those in power. She leaned slightly into his touch, a gesture that would send ripples through the court. You're not afraid? Why would I be? Terrified, he admitted, a wry smile playing on his lips. But humans excel at overcoming fear. It's how we survived long enough to reach for the stars. About survival, she said, reluctantly stepping back. Your first etiquette lesson with Master Prell is this afternoon. Frank groaned theatrically. I'd rather face another assassin. The old master isn't so bad. He made me spend 3 hours yesterday perfecting the proper way to eat soup. Did you succeed? I did, Thra confessed. Apparently, I've been doing it wrong my entire life. Their laughter was cut short by another chime from the communication system. Your Majesty, the Proxim ambassador demands an immediate audience. Well, Frank said, straightening, his eyes hardening. This should prove fascinating. You will not be present for this, Thindra stated firmly. The hell I'm not. His expression turned serious. Someone attempted to assassinate you using Proxim tech. Where you go, I go. They locked gazes, neither willing to concede. Finally, Thra sighed, relenting. Very well, but try not to trigger an interstellar war. Me? Never. He offered his arm in the proper Australian manner. Shall we go scandalize your court a little more? As they proceeded toward the throne room, Frank could not fail to notice how smoothly they moved together, how natural it felt. The assassination attempt, court intrigue, cultural clashes, none of it mattered with her by his side. And that's when the explosion tore through the palace. The blast sent crystalline shards showering through the palace corridors. Frank's combat instincts immediately took over. He yanked Thra behind a massive pillar, shielding her body with his own, as secondary explosions shook the very foundations. His adaptable clothing swiftly transforming into protective plating, he stated, a hint of resignation in his tone. It seems tending to the injured and greeting the ambassador must be put on hold. Thyra's voice, though edged with panic amidst the pandemonium, remained firm. Frank, the explosion originated in the diplomatic wing. That's precisely where the ambassador is likely to be. He arrived, a sharp curse escaping his lips. This is no mere assassination now. It's a full-blown coup. As he spoke, the palace's emergency defenses sprang to life. shimmering walls materializing into protective barriers. Lord Commander Thi's amplified voice resonated through the comms system, urgent and commanding. "Multiple hostiles detected within the perimeter. Protect the Queen at all costs." Frank instinctively reached for a weapon, a ghost of familiar weight in his hand, a visceral ache for his absent tactical gear. "Please, for the love of all that is holy, tell me there's an armory nearby." A flicker of playful defiance lit Thindra's silver eyes. Perhaps something better? She pressed her hand against a seemingly solid wall, and a hidden panel hissed open, revealing a gleaming cache of advanced weaponry. "I had this little surprise installed after the first unfortunate incident." "I think I'm falling hard," Frank breathed, grabbing what looked suspiciously like an Australian pulse rifle. "You even know how to operate one of these?" Thindra's lips curled into a confident smirk. "I may be a queen, but I refuse to be a mere figurehead." She selected her own weapon with effortless grace. "The real question, darling, is can you handle Australian tech?" Just then, a squad of heavily armed figures in stealth suits materialized around the corner. Frank responded instantly, dropping 3 with pinpoint shots, the pulse rifle's neural interface seamlessly syncing with his human reflexes. "Does that answer your question, Your Highness?" He grinned, a flash of white in the dim light. "Show off," she chuckled, but a genuine admiration warmed her tone. They moved through the palace corridors as one, a symphony of practiced movements, seamlessly covering each other's weaknesses. Frank couldn't help but marvel at Thindra's fluid grace under pressure, her formal gown somehow becoming an extension of her lethal efficiency. "The diplomatic wing is just ahead," she said, as they reached a secure intersection, her voice laced with concern. "But something is deeply wrong. These attackers, their maneuvers are far too precise. This is an inside job." Frank nodded grimly. "The question is, from where? The Proximus? Your court? Or, gods forbid, both?" Before Thindra could reply, Lord Commander Thu's voice, laced with static and dread, blared through their comms. "My queen, the Proxim ambassador. He's dead, vaporized in the initial blast." "How convenient," Frank muttered, a cold dread washing over him. "Or meticulously planned," Thindra added, her silver eyes hardening. "A perfect pretext for galactic war." A shared look of grim understanding passed between them. Someone was deliberately trying to shatter the fragile peace, and they were the only thing standing in the way. The sound of approaching footsteps snapped them back to the present, but instead of more hostiles, Ambassador Thyron staggered into view, his silvery skin smeared with soot and grime, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "Thank the heavens you're both alive," he rasped. "The Proxim delegation. It wasn't them. Their shuttle was intercepted and replaced before it ever reached the palace. The real ambassador is still safely in orbit." "How can you be sure of this?" Thindra demanded, but before Thyron could answer, a new voice cut through the tension. "I told him." Emerging from the shadows, a figure materialized that sent a jolt of ice through Frank's veins. Admiral Jenkins of Earth's Special Operations Command. "Sir, what in God's name are you doing here? You weren't supposed to be anywhere near Australis." Frank stood straighter, his military training kicking in, masking his shock. "What's going on?" "Preventing a war." Jenkins' weathered face was grim and unyielding. "We've been tracking a highly organized splinter group humans, Proxim. Even a few rogue Australians, all united in their desire to maintain the old conflicts. They call themselves the Purists, naturally." Thindra's eyes narrowed, her mind racing. The staged assassination, the sabotage of the Proxim shuttle, this attack. They're attempting to unravel everything we've achieved. And more specifically, Frank added, his voice hard with certainty, they're trying to destroy what we represent. Jenkins nodded grimly. "A human-Australian alliance. It would shatter their entire twisted narrative about the impossibility of lasting peace between species. A deafening explosion ripped through the palace above them, sending a cascade of debris crashing down. Frank instinctively shoved Thindra out of the path of the falling debris as a section of the ceiling collapsed. "Philosophy can wait," he bellowed above the din. "We need to reach the command center, broadcast what's actually happening, and stop this madness before it's too late." "Agreed," Thindra affirmed, her eyes blazing with purpose. She turned to Jenkins. "Admiral, can Earth's forces confirm the real Proxim ambassador's location, and let me see the security footage?" "Affirmative. They're holding a secure position, awaiting our command." "Then let's move," Frank urged. But before taking another step, he turned to Thindra, cupped her face in his hands, and sealed their resolve with a deep, soul-stirring kiss. The rest of them shifted their gaze discreetly, although he noticed the faint smirk playing on Jenkins's lips as they separated. Thindra's luminous silver eyes widened, filled with surprise and a deeper emotion he couldn't quite decipher. "What on earth was that for?" she breathed. He flashed a nervous grin. "Just in case we meet a gruesome end in the next few moments," he admitted. "And also, I've been craving that all week," she breathed, a secret smile playing on her lips. Always saving her most theatrical moments, wasn't she? "If you two are quite finished with your romantic interlude," Jenkins cut in, his voice laced with urgency, "we have a conspiracy to unravel and a war to avert." Together, they surged forward, battling through relentless waves of purist zealots. Frank was struck by how fluidly Thundra adapted to human tactics, just as he had incorporated Australian battle strategies. "The command center lies just beyond this point," Thundra announced as they approached a formidable door. "But it's been fortified beyond measure." "Then it's fortunate that humanity's finest stands by your side," Jenkins declared, brandishing what appeared to be a quantum grenade, ready to demonstrate to these zealots why they should deeply fear the unification of our species. Frank met Thundra's gaze, seeing the same fierce resolve mirroring his own. "Ready when you are, Your Majesty?" "Together, then," she responded, her hand finding his. "Let us show them the consequences of threatening our shared future." The door exploded inward, and they surged through as one, human and alien, united against the forces of division. The command center's quantum computers throbbed with power as Frank and Thundra raced against the clock. Admiral Jenkins and Ambassador Thyron established a secure perimeter, while Lord Commander Tha oversaw the palace defenses from an auxiliary station. "The broadcast channels are under attack." Thundra's fingers danced across holographic displays. "Someone's inundating the networks with fabricated reports of the Proxim ambassador's assassination." Frank focused on a nearby console, his recent crash course in Australian technology proving invaluable. "I've found something. The jamming signals originate from within the palace walls. Impossible!" "Frank," a sharp voice echoed. The holoscreens flickered to reveal the face of Master Prell, Thyra's etiquette instructor. "After all these years, the man who taught me proper soup etiquette is a purist conspirator?" Frank couldn't resist quipping. "I always suspected those spoon rules were inherently evil." "Your human humor won't shield you," PR sneered, his image wavering slightly. "Do you truly comprehend the purpose behind the Queen's wish-granting tradition, human? It's not merely a reward for heroism. It's about safeguarding genetic purity." Thyra's face drained of color. "No. Indeed, my queen. For countless millennia, only the strongest Australians were permitted to risk their lives to save a monarch. The wish tradition ensured the continued superiority of our bloodlines. But now," he glared at Frank, "a humano dares to corrupt our most sacred tradition." "That's not corruption," Frank countered, his fingers never ceasing their work on the console. "It's evolution, adaptation, progress. And there's something you haven't considered, Thundra interjected, her voice carrying a newfound weight that commanded attention. Something I myself only realized just now. She executed a sequence of commands, and ancient data cascaded across the screens. The first queen of Arala was human. The silence that followed was absolute. Unthinkable, PR breathed. Those records were hidden, encrypted within our most ancient genetic archives. 3 continued. Earth wasn't humanity's first journey to the stars millennia ago. A human colony ship crashed here. Their leader, a woman named Sarah Jenkins, helped the primitive Australian tribes unite in advance. Frank glanced at Admiral Jenkins, who nodded slowly, his expression somber. My family has safeguarded this secret for generations, waiting for the opportune moment. When you made your wish, Frank, we recognized the time had come. The wish tradition, Thayer's voice resonated with renewed strength, wasn't about genetic purity. It was about preserving the bond between our peoples, in the hope that one day we might find each other again. Frank reached for her hand, reveling in the warmth of her blue skin against his own. And now we have. Lies. PR's image contorted with unbridled rage. Your union will never be sanctioned. Actually, Admiral Jenkins said with a knowing smile, it already has been. He activated his own console, revealing feeds streaming in from across the galaxy, showcasing scenes of celebration and acceptance. From high orbit, the authentic Proxen ambassador passionately condemned the brutal assault. As Earth's protective fleets rushed to Estras's aid, the Australian people, glued to their screens, were finally awakening to the stark truth of the matter. Remember their heritage? PR Frank stated, shaking his head. While you were busy grandstanding, we weren't just standing around admiring the scenery, although we excel at that. Thyra clasped his hand, suppressing a smile. The jamming signal is reversed. The entire galaxy just heard everything you said. Especially, she added with a satisfied gleam, your treasonous confession. Security forces stormed into PR's command center. The old master's agonizing scream ended with the abruptly cut-off transmission. Well, Frank said, turning to Thundra, that was pretty intense, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that I'm apparently involved with royalty from both our worlds. Involved? Thundra asked, raising a delicate eyebrow. Is that what humans call the sacred act of binding themselves to a queen through time-honored tradition? Speaking of binding commitments, Admiral Jenkins interrupted their back and forth with a serious tone. There's vital information you need to know about the genetic archives. He displayed a new file, filled with intricate DNA patterns. The rarity of human-Australian pairings isn't because they're impossible, but because they're overwhelmingly probable. Their union yields something exceptional. What does that mean? Frank questioned, but from Thyra's sharp intake of breath, it seemed she understood. The offspring of a human and an Australian, Jenkins detailed, inherits the finest qualities of both. Incredible strength, advanced intellect, and more importantly, an innate ability to unite, just as Sarah Jenkins did. Thindra, she whispered, her free hand protectively touching her stomach, like our child will. Frank's eyes widened in shock. Are you? I wasn't certain until just now, she said softly. But looking at these genetic markers, yes, it appears your heartfelt wish had more immediate effects than we imagined. Their tender moment was abruptly interrupted by Ambassador Thyrin clearing his throat loudly. As heartwarming as this is, we still have a palace teeming with conspirators to address. You're right, Frank said, regaining his composure, never releasing Thundra's hand. First we secure the palace, then we deal with every last purist sympathizer, and then, Thindra finished, her silver eyes locking with his warm brown ones. We build a brand new future together. Together, he confirmed, then smiled. Though we should probably get married quickly before the baby bump becomes obvious. I've heard Australian court gossip is particularly savage. Oh, now you suddenly care about protocol? She teased, her eyes dancing. Only when it comes to making an honest queen of you. Admiral Jenkins sighed in exasperation. If you two lovebirds are quite finished, we have a galaxy on the verge of chaos that requires our immediate attention. As they moved to secure their shared future, Frank couldn't ignore the idea that some upheaval had been beneficial. It had led him to her, to this impossible reality. And really, wasn't that fundamentally human? 2 weeks after the purest conspiracy's exposure, the Celestial Palace glowed with enhanced beauty. Damaged areas had been repaired with remarkable crystalline technologies, the new structures somehow surpassing their original splendor, reflecting the strengthened bond forged in the fires of conflict. Frank stood on a private balcony, carefully adjusting his ceremonial robes. Formal wear now felt strangely comfortable, even though he'd insisted on integrating elements from his Earth military dress uniform. The outcome was a powerful fusion of human and Australian tradition, much like his upcoming marriage. Nervous? Admiral Jenkins asked, joining him. About marrying the most powerful woman in the sector with the whole galaxy watching? Frank chuckled wryly. Absolutely terrified, but in a wonderful way. Your father would be immensely proud, Jenkins said quietly. He always believed humanity's true destiny lay among the stars. Frank turned, genuinely surprised. You knew my father? He was a key member of the team that originally unearthed the ancient genetic archives, Jenkins explained. Your assignment to protect Ambassador Thyron wasn't a mere coincidence, Frank. We've observed your journey meticulously, anticipating this chance, a voice echoed. So the wish. It wasn't entirely my own impulse. Jenkins offered a knowing smile. The desire was undeniably yours. We simply orchestrated the setting for its utterance, though even we were taken aback by your, shall we say, bold articulation. He is absolutely perfect. Thera's voice drifted from the doorway, filled with a quiet reverence. Both men spun around, and Frank's heart leaped in his chest. She was ethereal, draped in a gown that shimmered like captured starlight, its colors shifting between the deepest blues and the purest whites. Crystalline flowers like living jewels adorned her vibrant crimson hair, catching the light with every move. Yet it was her luminous smile that stole his breath away. Aren't you supposed to avoid seeing me before we actually say, I do? She whispered playfully, gliding closer. Terrible luck on Earth, or so they say. Doubt we have any luck left to curse, Frank murmured, pulling her close, his hand instinctively finding the small of her back. Besides, ancient lore states the bride and groom must share breakfast on their special morning. Her silver eyes sparkled with amusement. Someone actually paid attention during those intense cultural lessons, she noted, a gentle teasing in her voice. Though I can imagine your motivation was, understandably, quite high. His hand rested protectively on her abdomen, still serenely flat, cradling the miracle they shared. How are you actually feeling, love? This morning's sickness is certainly unique, she admitted, a slight grimace playing on her lips. Apparently, human Australian pregnancies present some rather novel challenges, but the medical team is just absolutely fascinated by every little detail. Jenkins cleared his throat, interrupting their tender moment. Speaking of details, dignitaries are starting to arrive, and there are a few unexpected guests. They moved towards the balcony, overlooking the breathtaking descent of various ships through the swirling Australis atmosphere. Frank let out a low whistle as he spotted one vessel, a Proximan battlecruiser, its formidable hull now adorned with prominent peace markings. The Proximan High Council actually sent their heir, Thera breathed, a hint of awe in her voice. It seems our union has given them some hope, apparently reconsidering their isolationist policies for good. Nothing like a wedding to finally bring people together, Frank quipped, fighting back a nervous grin. But I hope they're not expecting any party favors. I draw the line at commemorative quantum crystals. Thera's laughter echoed, a melodious sound that danced across the crystalline spires. Actually, we do have something far more special planned, she revealed, her eyes shining. The geneticists have prepared a presentation showcasing our human-Australian compatibility. They believe our child may actually be the very first of a new generation, what they are calling a truly natural diplomat. Jenkins nodded solemnly. Born to literally bridge the gap between species. No pressure on the little one or anything, Frank mumbled, but his radiant smile belied his words. A clear chime resonated through the palace, heralding the start of the rapidly approaching ceremony. Jenkins excused himself discreetly, leaving the couple alone in the tranquil stillness. Second thoughts? Thera whispered, her silver eyes searching his, seeking any flicker of doubt. About you. Absolutely never, he affirmed, his voice husky with emotion. He gently brushed a stray strand of crimson hair from her exquisite face. About having to dance the traditional spiral of unity in front of basically galactic leaders? Absolutely terrified. She laughed, a light, airy sound. You'll be just perfect, she assured him, squeezing his hand tightly. Just remember those steps the new etiquette master taught you. Ah yes, the new etiquette master, thankfully much less creatively evil than the last one. Their laughter was interrupted by the imposing arrival of Lord Commander Thal. My queen, honored consort, it is time. As they walked together toward the grand expanse of the Great Hall, Frank marveled at the sheer magnitude of the change. From a simple protection detail to literally becoming the catalyst for galactic unity. It was the kind of story that would feel impossibly far-fetched if he wasn't actually living it. The ceremony itself was a dazzling spectacle, a harmonious blend of customs, human vows of unyielding loyalty, and profound love intertwined seamlessly with ancient Australian rituals of binding. The Proximan air gifted them with a peace crystal of unprecedented size. Earth's representatives brought sacred water from every ocean, symbolizing humanity's collective blessing. It was during their first dance that the true, breathtaking significance of their union became undeniably clear. As they moved gracefully through the intricate steps of the traditional spiral, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, the crystalline floor beneath their feet began to softly glow, illuminating ancient patterns that had lain hidden for millennia, awakened by their touch. It's responding to our combined DNA, Thera whispered, her eyes wide with wonder as they danced, just like the old tales of Solara predicted. So you think Jenkins thinks our little one will be able to do this too? Frank asked, leading her seamlessly through another graceful turn. My darling child is destined for greatness, she murmured, her voice laced with affection. Though at this very moment, my curiosity lies solely with their father, and his reaction to the delightful secret I'm concealing beneath this gown. A whisper of tradition, and very little else. Frank stumbled, nearly losing his balance. A mischievous glint sparkled in his wife's eyes. You're delightfully wicked, he breathed, captivated. And I adore it. The joyous celebration stretched into the darkness, a symbol of their unprecedented bond. But for Frank and Thindra, true magic unfolded later, in the serene privacy of their chambers, where they could simply be, untethered from duty, two souls intertwined across galaxies. As they stood hand in hand on their balcony, watching Astralis's 3 moons ascend, Frank murmured, Was marrying my crazy wish worth it? Thindra's response was a searing kiss, a promise of countless adventures yet to come. A year later, palpable anticipation hung thick in the air of the Celestial Palace's medical wing. Frank, a whirlwind of nervous energy and rumpled formal wear, paced the crystalline corridor. Though the joint human-Australesian medical team had meticulously prepared for every imaginable scenario, the birth of the first human-Australesian hybrid in millennia was still a leap into the unknown. "If you wear a groove into my floor, you're paying for repairs," Thindra's voice echoed from within, laced with both exhaustion and amusement. "Pretty sure that's physically impossible," he chuckled, stepping inside. "These crystals are harder than—" His voice faltered as his gaze fell upon their daughter. She was perfection itself. Delicate fingers, skin the softest shade of Australesian blue, and wisps of hair that shimmered between brown and crimson. But her eyes held him captive. One brown, one silver, both radiating ancient, unfathomable wisdom. "She's breathtaking," he whispered, gently touching Thindra's cheek. "She's also broadcasting," a doctor observed, pointing to the medical monitors. The crystalline walls of the chamber pulsed with a gentle light, echoing the baby's presence, reminiscent of their wedding dance. "She's already resonating with the ancient technology." Thindra smiled, her gaze never leaving their daughter. The moment was shattered by the urgent arrival of Admiral Jenkins, his usual composure slightly frayed. "We have a crisis." "Of course," Frank sighed, "because the arrival of our miracle child simply couldn't be peaceful." "The remaining purists," Jenkins explained, his voice tight, "have launched a desperate attack on the palace's power core. If they destabilize it, the entire city could be annihilated." Thindra began to push up from the bed. "No, you don't." Frank gently pushed her back, saying, "You just gave birth to our miracle, the one is on me." Australesian forces are responding, but they are unable to deal with the ancient defense systems because the purist gained control. Frank glanced at his daughter, then at his wife. "I have an idea, but it's insane, even by my standards." "Those are my favorite kinds," Thindra replied, a spark of understanding igniting in her eyes. "You want to use her connection to the crystals?" "Not precisely." He carefully gathered their daughter into his arms. "I want to use our connection, all of us, the same way the floor responded during our wedding dance. It just might work." One of the Australesian doctors said, "The ancient texts spoke of Sarah Jenkins used her child's connection to unite the tribes." "This is madness," Jenkins muttered, "using a newborn to hack a planetary defense system." "Welcome to our unconventional family," Frank grinned, his expression hardening with resolve. "Thindra?" She nodded, her eyes filled with trust and love. "Do it. But if anything happens to either of them, I know. You'll kill me after you save us all." Cradling their daughter with infinite tenderness, Frank placed his free hand on the chamber wall. Thindra reached out, touching both him and the baby, completing the circuit. An immediate, breathtaking surge of energy coursed through the palace, igniting the crystalline structure like a supernova. Through their combined connection, they felt everything: the desperation of the purists in the power core, the valiant efforts of the defending forces, the intricate network of crystals and circuits that powered their world. Their daughter cooed softly, and the ancient system stirred, awakening to her presence. Instead of unleashing a barrage, defense turrets pulsed with disarming energy, nullifying purist weaponry. Protective barriers materialized, safely enclosing the attackers. "This can't be," Jenkins whispered, fixated on the security footage. "Ty is doing more than controlling those systems. She's enhancing them beautifully." "Actually," Thra whispered, her voice filled with emotion, "we all are. This tradition, this wish, it was always about uniting us, not just as individuals, but as diverse species, together." The crisis dissolved within mere minutes, the purists subdued without any loss of life. Yet the transformations their daughter sparked rippled outwards through the city. Ancient systems, dormant for eons, awakened, their purpose shifting from defense to unifying cooperation. "Well," Frank murmured, gazing at the dazzling light show from the medical bay's window. I believe a proper name is in order, something befitting this extraordinary moment. Sarah Thindra, Thra offered, inspired by the first human queen, but with a middle name to honor Australia, Luminara, for bringer of light. Sarah Luminara Mir. Frank tested the name, a hint of worry in his tone. That's a big legacy for one small child. She's already surpassing it, Jenkins interjected, his eyes glued to the reports on his quantum pad. These changes she initiated, the opportunities for peaceful interspecies harmony, they're limitless. The Proxim are already requesting authorization to examine the modernized systems. On the subject of modernizations, one of the doctors announced, disrupting their focus, you both really need to see this. She motioned towards fresh scans of their infant daughter. Her DNA, it isn't just a blend of human and Australian coding, it's actively evolving, synthesizing something wholly unprecedented. Humanity's next evolution? Frank queried, his brow furrowed with hope. Everyone's next evolution, Thra corrected gently. She embodies what we could all become when we strive together. As if on cue, little Sarah opened her mismatched eyes and graced them with a smile, causing every crystal within the chamber to thrum with a radiant, comforting light. You know, Frank began, settling near his wife and daughter, his heart swelling with emotion. When I initially made that wish, I thought I was being daring, simply wanting you. It turns out, I was inadvertently wishing for the future of both our worlds. Technically, Thra responded with a loving smirk, I still couldn't refuse, even if it entailed reshaping the galaxy. Best tradition ever? He grinned, leaning in to kiss her deeply. Sarah giggled again, and overhead the crystalline lights coalesced into magnificent patterns, depicting stars and galaxies engaged in a celestial dance, a promise of uncharted adventures to come. As the small family observed their daughter's inaugural light display, Frank mused upon the incredible journey that led them here, from a simple protection assignment to a wish that rewrote destiny, from a wrathful queen to his kindred spirit, from two distinct civilizations to the dawn of something entirely novel. And it all began because he was audacious enough to yearn for the one thing deemed unattainable. Some wishes, it appeared, were worth defying the universe for.